And if you would join me all for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mary, if you could do roll call, please.
Erica?
Here.
Mary? Here. Joel? Here. Andy? Here. Art?
Here.
Vito? Here. Craig? Here. Jill? Here. Cherry's excused. Michael? Here. And Kayla.
No, you're not. Okay, this is an open meeting and has been noted as such. The first thing on the board president on the agenda is the board president report, and I really don't have much other than a reminder. Last month I mentioned before citizens' comments were all read that citizens' comments are indeed limited to things that are on the agenda. So just a reminder for everybody, last month we still read them all because I hadn't yet mentioned it to everybody. So we read every last one of them, and starting this month, if it's not with the agenda, we will not be reading those online citizens' comments or taking them in person. So with that, we are going to start with citizens' comments, though, and we have two in person. We have Mark Summers.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, Mark. Hi, Vito. I'm sure you all know who I am and, well, have gotten to know me by now. I want to make some comments on the COVID mitigation plan, the proposed one that was shown to us in our last school board meeting. That's something that, as parents, and many of us parents of Mukwonago School District do not agree with. Some of the items within that proposal are not agreeable, and one of those that is on the agenda is the positive at home and having a forced quarantine. We don't agree with it. A number of weeks ago I did submit a proposed draft. Again, it's a draft, something similar to what Superintendent McNulty had proposed, but it puts more power to the parents, and I would like to have that reviewed in a way, and hopefully we can identify a plan or determine a plan based on input like that, which came from many different parents that I put together, including some revisions that I've made to it since, well, actually just before I submitted it, some last minute revisions because some parents did ask me to. I had proposed it to parents before proposing it to the school board, so I had gotten a lot of feedback. So I would like to ensure that everybody has a copy of that. I did email the entire school board moving forward with the COVID mitigation plan. Again, we want to put it in the parents' hands. It's within their power to care for their children. It's not the school board's jurisdiction. That's probably the best way I can put it. It's not the government's jurisdiction, it's the parents. So with that, I want to thank everybody for everything we've done so far. I think we've done very, very well. And I want to continue that forward momentum the same way we've been doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next is Stephanie Cerniglia.
So I wrote an email, so I'm just going to pretty much read what I wrote, some additional items. We do want normalcy, given the everything that's going on. What's normal for me? When my child gets sick, I don't bring them to the doctor. I don't bring them to urgent care for cold or flu. I bring them, and this happened before COVID, it was about a week and a half of on and off again fevers. And it wasn't until I'm like, all right, it's not going away, that I finally brought her to urgent care, and then we had antibiotics. I don't want to raise my kids being fearful of any sort of germ I want them to be able to go to school and, germs help build the immune system. If we are not exposed enough, when we do come across something, our reaction is going to be stronger than if we are, constantly out there. I have autoimmune conditions, and I probably 95% of the time was not wearing a mask. I was going to the grocery store. I was bringing my kids to the bowling alley, and it was my husband who ended up getting the vaccine, and he's the one who got ill, none of us. So I don't agree with, the measures because of this, and again, I believe it should be a parent's choice. Vaccinated individuals can still spread it, and I don't think that they should have special exemptions in place because they have a vaccine. The quarantines for close contacts with in-home positive, I don't agree with that. I know schools don't follow HIPAA, but then that's kind of crossing the line when you start wondering what's happening in home. Now, of course, if parents or guardians feel the need to do this, they should be allowed to do this, but I think it is a step too far. Proof of anything in order for them to have a normal uninterrupted education, I don't agree. I mean, we have the exemptions in place, which is nice, to be able to mitigate that. And then, of course, in the comments that I made in an email, I sent it on September 28th. I did find something from Science Daily for mitigation measures for the school, not classrooms. And they gave 3 different scenarios, with scenario option 2 and 3 being the best for mitigation and not holding kids out of class who might not have any sort of illness. And then, of course, no required masks for anyone moving forward. I had sent an email on September 20th showing the negative effects of that. As you can see, I feel strongly about, the power in the parents' hands. And then another one of my concerns is something that'll probably be brought up eventually, is that moving forward with the emergency use authorization of the Pfizer vaccine for children 5 to 11, it is very important that any sort of entity that wants to be on school grounds to provide immunizations, I think that should be a discussion here before that happens, just like having those entities that were on the school grounds providing tests. I didn't feel comfortable with them on school grounds whatsoever. But yes, it's for the kids. I homeschooled last year. My mom homeschooled me for a couple of years for different reasons, sports related. And if it came down to it, I would pull them again to homeschool. There are a lot of great resources out there in order to give them a great education. Not every child learns the same. Some will, be ahead. Some will, always, have certain struggles. But given the year that we had, they were able to get right back into it, and they are happy to be with their friends, and that's where I want them, is with their friends and around their peers, because the social aspect of school is very important. We were able to do it, but not as greatly as it can be done in the school. So yeah, definitely against pretty much everything, but willing to be open for discussion on the measures. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I do have one email citizens comment from Carolyn Simon. Please dismiss the action item for more mitigation measures that was proposed by McNulty. Please do not quarantine those who have a family member testing positive for COVID. Those who have COVID can continue to test positive for months, and therefore students that live with those people would remain home for months. All health decisions should be made by parents. Thank you for agreeing last month that mask mandates will not return to MASD. Let's go veto, it says. I didn't know if I was going to read that. Just for you. Signed, Carolyn Simon.
Did we put a limit on the number of comments we were going to read ever, or is it just if there's 100, we read 100?
We've never we don't have a number limit, but we do have a time limit that is allowed by
I had a
policy.
complaint from a person watching.
That it was too
It
long?
was too long.
Well,
And they were on
They
their
should have
couch.
been
They
here
were on
in
their
person.
couch,
They
yeah.
should have been here. No, we can limit it to 30 minutes, but because it was something that we had not been discussed prior to that meeting, as a heads up, I felt like it was unfair for all of the people that
I'm not trying
submitted.
to limit
Yeah.
or put a damper on anybody's enthusiasm, but again, if they really wanna have our ear, sitting out there is probably better than
And we'll,
100 emails.
and that is on the agenda that we will talk about
Oh,
later.
okay. I should have looked into that.
Okay, so we are going to move on to consent agenda. I am looking for approval of board minutes from September 27th, 2021, as well as the approval of vouchers number 134632 to 134989 in the amount of 1.9 million in change, and receipts for September 2021 totaling 4.4 million in change, as well as the approval of the MHS soccer trip with UW Whitewater to Ireland in 2022. Do I have any questions or concerns?
You need a motion for the soccer trip?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
All, if no concerns, it is passed by consent. And then we will go ahead and start with our presentations, and we have our student rep report.
All right, so the Global Scholars Program from Mukwonago High School brought in a guest speaker to talk to students about civil liberties and religious freedom. The speaker was an Indonesian priest who works as a missionary in Taiwan and China. Students were very interested to hear his differing perspectives on human rights versus civil rights, unofficial oppression in Indonesia, where all citizens are forced to choose one of 5 religions, and his experience in China, where religion is legal but foreign influence on religion is illegal. He showed examples of propaganda used by the Communist Party and answered questions about his work, his risks, and the risks of those with whom he works. Any student or staff member interested in hearing the presentation can check out a USB drive from the MHS library. For Parkview Middle School, PVMS students and staff are excited to bring back the Parkview in the Dark Community Trick-or-Treat event for children aged 10 and under and their families. Please join them for this evening of spooky fun on Wednesday, October 27th from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Mrs. Sirkowski's 8th grade class chose a business to promote at the annual Jack-o'-lantern jaunt. They carved pumpkins using their selected business's logo. Through this project, they were able to practice elements of the promotional mix learned in class while contributing to a community event. PVMS would like to thank all Mukwonago businesses for their support. Parkview is speechless at the extraordinary generosity demonstrated by their students and staff. They conducted a coin drive to benefit childhood cancer awareness and far surpassed their goal of $500, raising $1,800.
Wow.
Student government at Parkview is off to a terrific start. They have nearly doubled their usual roster numbers with 162 members this school year. Once they begin their meetings for the school year, members of PVMS student government select different service projects for each month, except for September, where the advisors pick. Since September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, Chelsea Poslinski and Lissa Rabel wanted this to be their organization's focus. Parkview's character trait of the month is respect, so they linked to this by encouraging students and staff to wear gold and yellow to show school spirit and support children who are battling cancer by making donations on September 30th. They were thrilled and astonished by the generosity of the Parkview student body and staff. In the past, donation checks were sent to a local Wisconsin organization called G9 Golden September. It has since merged with the larger nonprofit Beat Childhood Cancer based in Boston, Massachusetts, Tampa, Florida, and Heartland.
Big Bend Elementary 6th graders created bubble wands using the scientific method and a 3D printer. Students developed and questioned about the design of a bubble wand, constructed a hypothesis, designed a new bubble wand and experiment, tested the new bubble wand, and wrote a conclusion identifying whether or not their experiment and new bubble wand design was a success. The students then worked with Ms. Bretza during the Cole laboratory to code or design their bubble wand in Tinkercad.
The kindergartners at Clarendon had a great field trip to the Mukwonago Fire Station during Fire Prevention Week. They learned about fire safety, learned about all of the tools that are in the fire truck, and saw a firefighter get dressed in their gear. The first graders at Clarendon had their yearly trip to the pumpkin patch. They enjoyed a hayride, corn maze, played on the equipment, and went pumpkin picking. It was a great day.
This month, Eagleville hosted an exceptional grandparent lunch week and book fair. Grandparents ate outside and were given a tour by their students. A huge shout out to the amazing PTO, Fultz Family Market, and MP Takiria for making this event possible. Students in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade learned about composting and monitoring health in their creek from local expert James Jenks. This Friday, October 29th, Eagleville will host their 2nd annual pumpkin hike through the woods. This year, they are able to open it up to families from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Families can have refreshments and enjoy a Halloween hike, decorating with donated pumpkins and student-designed pumpkins from the PBIS incentive. Young and old continue to enjoy activities through the MASD Community Ed program. Students at Eagleville are connecting and learning to deal with physical, emotional, and mental stress through weekly after-school classes of Yoga for Youth. Likewise, adults are learning to loosen up, increase flexibility, improve balance, and feel more energized through Yoga for Working Stiffs, held at the high school.
Along with Clarendon, Prairie View students celebrated Fire Safety Week during the week of October 3rd through the 9th. The theme of this year's Fire Safety Week was Learn the Sounds of Fire Safety. Students learned about the different sounds the smoke and carbon monoxide alarms make. They learned what to do when an alarm sounds to keep their family safe. A huge thank you to the North Prairie Fire Department for coming to Prairie View to teach students about fire safety. Prairie View students carved pumpkins to be displayed at Field Park for the Jack-o'-lantern jaunt. Many students were excited to go to the jaunt to see the pumpkin display. Prairie View will be celebrating Red Ribbon Week from October 25th through the 29th. They have a variety of different spirit days planned to encourage their students to be drug-free.
Rolling Hills had a very successful grandparent lunch week during October 11th through the 15th. Their PTO served an additional 650 visitor lunches that week that raised nearly $20,000 in book sales through Scholastic. A special thanks to the PTO volunteers who organized and sponsored this tremendous event. Thank you to all of the grandparents and their other family members for supporting literacy within the schools through all of their purchases. Thank you to the Village of Mukwonago Fire Department for their presentations during Fire Prevention Week. The presentations were all age appropriate and the kindergarten classes loved getting to see the fire trucks up close. During the week of October 11th, 4 Book Buddy classrooms carved pumpkins for the Jack-o'-lantern jaunt. Thanks to Mrs. Korth, Mrs. Napiria, Mrs. Lang, Mrs. Arns, and all of the parent volunteers for participating. Lastly, Rolling Hills would like to thank the parents for attending the parent-teacher conferences. They want to make sure that they continue to foster a positive partnership in education every chance they get.
And then finally, Section Elementary. Creative potential is being tapped through a variety of art classes. Raku Ceramics participants learned a variety of hand-building techniques, sculpture, and use of a potter's wheel. Projects were fired in a red-hot kiln and then placed into combustible chambers to create unique pottery. At Section Community Ed program participants learned to create geometrically beautiful projects in the barn quilt painting class. The 2021-22 school year was the return of the long-standing PTG fundraiser, Section 60. During Section 60, students raised pledges to participate in an additional 60 minutes of physical activity during the school day. Activities during this week included yoga, exercise bands, hula hoops, basketball, the rock wall, scooter challenges, and more. With the event being gone last year, the fundraiser was a great success this year, raising over $17,000. The Section Student Council once again represented Section Elementary as well at the Mukwonago Rotary's Jack-o'-lantern jaunt. More than 50 pumpkins were carved by the Student Council and displayed at the event.
Thank you very much. Next, we have our strategic plan update, college and career readiness and mental health.
So as you're aware, we put together a strategic plan during the spring and summer of 2019. The full school board approved that plan in the fall of 2019. Obviously, we've been out of school since then due to COVID, and then last year was a highly unusual year, but we are working hard to regain our focus on this important work. And so our strategic plan has 4 different components, and we have 2 of our administrators here tonight to talk about 2 of those. And so Christine Bowden will be talking about mental health, and Dustin Lehman will be talking about college and career readiness. Next month, Stephanie will present, as well as Stephen Williams, and they'll talk about staff retention and also student learning. So I'm not sure who's going first, Dustin or Christine?
We rock, paper, scissors, and
Oh.
so I'm going first.
You won or
I won.
lost?
Yeah. So this is the October, obviously October strategic plan update. So part of the strategic plan that I focus on a lot, as you guys know, is the mental health piece and the social and emotional growth. So the first slide in the presentation looks at the data collection tools. So in what ways are we monitoring and then measuring our outcomes and student success? So I just made a list of each tool, and then we'll dig down deeper into each of those areas. So the first piece is that we track our student mental health data across the system from kindergarten through 12th grade, looking at what trends or concerns or highlights that we're seeing in students. We also collect information on bullying and harassment that's reported to the Department of Public Instruction. We look at our discipline data. We look at our participation in our detour program, which I will talk a little bit more about. As you know, earlier this last year, we partnered with the GALS, and so I'll talk a little bit about that piece, our GED program, and then also our SUSO tip line app that students are able to make anonymous tips on. So a strategic plan has its 2 parts. So the first part being what I referred to as the data collection tools, and then the second piece is looking at what resources we have. So our first resource that we brought on this last year is the role of the mental health navigator. GALS, which I'll drill down to, our continued partnership with Cornerstone, the Detour class, the Speak Up and Speak Out. I'll talk a little bit about the increases in our pupil services team that the board approved last spring, and then give you just a brief update on the GED 2 program. So first, just reviewing our GALS on-site. If you recall, the GALS on-site program is a partnership with a collaborative group of licensed clinicians. They work with several school districts in the area providing therapy to students at school. So students aren't missing so much time to leave for appointments. And it's really convenient for students and very convenient for families. So we looked at adding and did add the mental health navigator role. That will be funded partially through the mental health grant, which I'll also speak to. Currently, our mental health navigator spends 1 full day a week at Mukwonago High School, and she has an exceptionally full schedule, 1 day a week. In addition to that, we are currently, since putting into place last spring, serving 26 different families through the GALS Institute. And then also continuing that partnership with Cornerstone, we have 11 students receiving counseling through Cornerstone as well. The other thing about the GALS partnership is that we are able to do events such as like a 1-day event or a support group. In November, we'll be bringing our first community partnership presentation to the community, and it's called the Journey to Resiliency. It'll be held at Brooklife. It's all about navigating anxiety and depression in adolescence, so I would encourage any of you to come or to please pass along the word to anybody else who you feel like would be a good fit for that program or just learning about it. I'll be there attending, obviously, as a director, but also as a parent. I do have quite a few other districts that have reached out asking about promoting it in their own districts, so I'm hoping for a good turnout. So we're excited about that. In November, we will be doing the Journey to Resiliency, and then in February, we are looking at doing one on cyberbullying and then one on social media in the spring of the year. right, the Your Choice partnership that I refer to here, I don't know how much, if you guys remember how much I unload on you when I'm up at the microphone, but the Detour program is meant to be used as an educational intervention for students who are caught in possession of alcohol, drugs, or vaping, especially for a first-time offense, that we find it to be much more beneficial to educate our students rather than just be reactive and suspend students. And so we've continued to do that. Just as a reminder, the commitment for students and families are that it's a full day program for students on a Saturday, and then a 2-hour mandatory parent commitment as well. And so the feedback we've had from parents has been really positive, feeling like it was a great class that, similar to our students, similar to ourselves, when something is mandatory, we attend, and so been a very good partnership. And student feedback has also, as you see on these next slides, also been greatly appreciated. So for the most part, our students who are participating in Detour are between that age range of 14 to 18, so really the end of that middle school into the high school age. And then it also have up there just gender, so male versus female as far as participation. Our feedback in general, students have found the videos of individual journeys being shared to be very helpful. They also feel that listening to the instructor has personal experiences. They talk about the impact it had on their own behaviors, and they just really appreciate the insight and the honesty in the class. And I already shared this with you, but again, just the feedback with parents that it has been it's been helpful overall in helping to coach some of those difficult discussions at home. So the Speak Up, Speak Out anonymous tip line was put in place last December. So it really allows students an anonymous platform in which to voice concerns or just to be able to let somebody know something that's going on in the building. And so the tip line is monitored 24/7 by the Department of Justice, and so there's always somebody watching that tip line. And the response time on the school district's behalf is very quick. All of our administrators who are involved in that specific building get a tip, and then really, like I said, the response time is really well done. If an administrator, say it's a Saturday night and it's late, and it's a life-threatening situation or could be a life-threatening situation, then they dispatch the police accordingly. And so it always feels like it's live as far as providing assistance. Just a few additional updates as well. Last spring, we did increase our pupil services staff, so we added a 5th counselor at the high school, and that role specifically coordinates some of the mental health grant and the alcohol and drug abuse grant that I'll talk about in just a second, and then also coordinating that GED 2 program. We also added an additional school psychologist at Prairie View Elementary School and Eagleville Elementary School, and so it was one person for those 2 buildings. But just wanted to historically just look back at our referrals for 504s and special education evaluations, primarily what a school psych generally has a hand in. And we had 67 special education referrals at this time in 2021 and 60 already this year. So the need was certainly warranted in the time investment on our school psychs. And then also just wanted to brief you a little bit or talk to you a little bit about the GED 2 alternative pathways. So at the start of the fall, we had 9 students enroll, 2 students have completed, and then we have 3 waiting to commit. And I'll bring in an additional update for SOAR and the GED 2 program in the spring when I present again on the mental health strategic plan. Because I can't wait to be up at the microphone again in the spring, presenting on the strategic plan. The next part is just looking at a couple of really cool things that have happened, and I have to give a shout out to Paige Reckie at the high school, but We were awarded 2 separate grants, and I know Sean mentioned this about 11:30 at night the last time we were together, but just want to give it a little bit of credit because it is really an awesome achievement that we got $75,000 awarded to our district. So part of the budget for that $75,000 was looking at financing that 5th counseling position at the high school. It will pay for the mental health navigator from the Gals Institute. It will purchase a 4K curriculum on SEL called We Thinkers. And then we will also use part of that funding for something called Youth Mental Health First Aid. And the Youth Mental Health First Aid is really an educational tool regarding mental health awareness. I think the important piece that I'm excited about moving forward is that the mental health training will be brought in for a variety of different roles in Mukwonago. So for example, our people who aren't typically part of our professional development plan, but our lunch staff and our bus drivers and our clerks in the office and our administrative assistants will all have the opportunity to take part in a mental health training that will talk more about the specifics and then strategies to work and interact with kids. And then the last piece is just going over increasing professional development related to trauma and then mental health. So we'll continue to focus on our building of partnerships between special education and general education with our co-serving and co-teaching. We'll also continue to have a focus on behavior and proactive solutions for working through challenging behavior. We had a training this summer. We had 160 teachers sign up on their own time during summer to come and participate in a training called Collaborative and Proactive Solutions. It was a super cool opportunity. Unfortunately, the weather did not cooperate at all, so this poor speaker got dragged all over the place. But regardless, we had a lot of really eager teachers to be part of the learning. I shared last time, but we'll just reiterate the focus on de-escalation training. We had 115 staff currently trained already at the start of this school year. And then continue the paraprofessional training. We did 2 boot camps right after school let out in June, one around literacy and one around behavior. We had about 55 to 60 special education paraprofessionals join us. And then we also just created a new mentor program for paraprofessionals. And when I say we, I mean Chris Agan, who is a program support for our elementary special education. But our goal in creating the mentor program is A, to recognize our high performers who are our current paraprofessionals, but B, to reduce turnover so that we can keep the good people we have and recognize the good people and grow some good people. So that's what I have. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Can you just clarify, so in the GED program, you said 9 enrolled, 2 finished. So that means 7 are still in progress or they dropped out?
No, 7 are still in progress.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, jeez, I always do this. I added an extra slide just tonight because I was up at the high school actually today visiting with Sue Bachhoven. And so just a little update on Champ. As you all know, Champ is a fellow colleague, student, emotional support for everybody at Mukwonago High School. And so as you can see, he was super active today. And so as he was snoring away, I put his little staff ID and took a picture of him. But it also cracked me up that he has his own little photo in the yearbook, so I just thought I would share. So.
That's awesome. See, Craig, especially you have a dog.
All right, good evening, everybody. I am here to talk to you about all of our students graduating Mukwonago High School, college, and career ready. So back when we developed these goals, our goal was Mukwonago Area School District will equip all students with the opportunities and skills necessary to determine and pursue their desired post-graduation plan. So like I spoke to the Learning Committee a few months ago, our plan is that when we talk to our graduates, they can tell us what their plan is. It's intentional, and and why they're doing what they plan to do. Not just like, I'm going to go to college, I'm not sure why. Our plan is to make sure that all students have an intentional next step once they leave Mukwonago High School. So just to recap, our year one SMART objective was by June of 2020 that 25% of our graduating seniors will get at least one industry recognized certification by the time they graduate, and the results from that year was 26.5%. So we met that goal. 165 certifications were earned by 101 different students. There are multiple students that we have that earn 4, some earn 5. I think there was a student who earned 7 of them actually. So that was the June of 2020 results. And then June of 2021, it dipped a little bit. We had 152 certifications earned by 79 different students. So we were just below 20% of our students graduating with an IRC from last spring. So our year 3 SMART objective is going to be by the June of 2022, 50% of our graduating seniors will at least have one industry recognized certification by the time they graduate. So we were hoping last spring we would be in that 37, 38 range to kind of split the middle, and so then next year we'll be at 50% of our graduating seniors. We're still going to shoot for 50%, but as you can see, we have quite a gap to fix here. But to try to fix that, new for the class of 2022, we have some certifications that we've just brought into our curriculum. So one is going to be Pro Start, and that's in our culinary program. That is a new capstone class that we've implemented. Ask, that is through our business and marketing classes. So at the end of some of those classes, they take some certification exams. New this year, or actually this last summer, students are earning a technical diploma now as they get their CNA certification, and we're doing that through Gateway Technical College. And then Fusion 360, it's like the 3D modeling software, it's like a 3D CAD. That's a new certification that we're offering this year as well. Some of the certifications, we're potentially bringing it already this second semester, but that we're looking to add with some of our curriculum work over the summer are going to be a lot of these manufacturing certifications that you see on the bottom of our screen here. So some MSSC certs, some FANUC, Certified Robot Operator, SACA, and then some new computer science certifications within our IT Academy. And students who are not in our IT Academy as well will be able to take part in some of those certification exams. All right, so this is how we plan on meeting our 3-year SMART objective. Obviously, some of this stuff has been put in place already, and we're still working to always better ourselves with some of these goals. We continually assess and refine our 6 through 12 ACP process, so what we call our Muck Ready initiative. Expanding community partnerships for work and capstone experiences for all students. Reviewing articulated learning pathways and expanding our academy options. We're increasing parent education about the pathways and options. That seems to be the biggest struggle, is for parents and students to actually know what we have offered for them. So we're always trying to do better at that. And then assess needed learning spaces for 4K through 12, 21st century learning experiences. All right, so assessing and refining our 6 through 12 ACP process. So 6 through 12 is what's state mandated. We actually offer this K through 12. It's our Muck Ready initiative that you have heard me speak on before. New this year at the high school, our counselors are taking over our advisory lessons, and Muck Ready is part of our advisory lessons. We're hoping that will help connect with students on their post-secondary planning and help eliminate any gaps that have been there before. Our high school students complete the college and career prep lessons monthly during advisory time. Usually one lesson a month, so one Wednesday a month is when we're doing some of this college and career prep work. And then new for this graduating class of 2022 is our Muck Ready capstone, where all seniors are working during their advisory times, during the specific Muck Ready advisories, where they are creating their Muck Ready capstone, which basically paints a picture of what they have done throughout their high school career to be prepared for whatever their journey is after Mukwonago High School. And they have time in advisory to do that, and they present it as well to their advisories. How we're expanding community partnerships for work and capstone experiences for all students. So brand new this fall, we have a brand new digital job board. So if you go on wijobboard.com, you will see our job board. We're up to 60-some jobs posted right now, and that fluctuates as jobs come off when they're being filled. We partnered with Muskego on that to reach as many businesses as possible in the area. So We put out mailers to every LLC within a 12-mile radius of Mukwonago, as well as Muskego did that. So we've reached quite a few people. We have a lot of movement on that, so we're really excited about where we're moving with that. Our on-site experiences for students, including field trips, are ramping back up this year, so that's great to see. We have 3 new capstone courses that we've implemented in the last year. So we have an updated healthcare capstone for our Academy of Medical Professions called Healthcare Services.
Dustin, explain the procedure if there's someone listening to our meeting, which I'm
Yeah.
sure there's like 12 people listening, and they run a business or have some kind of business and they want to get involved, what do they do?
Yeah, so if you go to that website, there's a big box in the upper corner that says post a job.
WIJobboard.com.
Yep, it says post a job, so you can click on that, or you can hover over the tab that says employers, scroll down to post a job, they'll create a login, and then they can, for free, post whatever job they have.
Okay.
And this December, so we're trying to build up our job postings right now, because we didn't want to offer this to 3,200 students and only have 3 jobs available.
Right.
So we're building up our jobs right now, and this December we have some Muck Ready lessons throughout advisory where we're going to be exposing this to all of our students. So right now we're showing this to some of our students like in our work-based learning classes like Work Seminar, some other kids that are just trying to find jobs that we know of. Our counselors are working one-on-one with those kids. But come December, we're going to be exposing all of our students to this. So our main goal with this is to just eliminate the hardest part for people to find, the hardest thing for employers to find, like for them to find our students is just knowing who to talk to. What I have found in my job is that there's a lot of turnover in some of these places. So when I had some contact at a local company and I reach back out, I'm getting an email back saying that person doesn't work there anymore. So we're always trying to eliminate that middleman. This is a spot that a company can always post a job and students can always look and see what's available. So that's really what we're trying to do. Just try to make it as easy as possible because we know there's plenty of jobs available. A few weeks ago, I was told 50 jobs up in an industrial park at one place, and right next door they had 30 job openings, and across the street they had 15 job openings. So plenty of job openings, and now we just have to get our students knowing about them.
And they're pretty flexible about hours, correct? They'll say, hey, come in after school, or...
Absolutely. Or weekends, whenever. Going back to our 3 new capstone courses implemented in the last year, healthcare services is for our Academy of Medical Professions, Pro Start is for culinary, and then our school store internship is our school store run out of our business and marketing program. We're always looking to refine and improve on our pathways and our academy options. As you know, we are implementing our 3rd academy this next school year, so work is being done for that. We have manufacturing, getting curriculum revisions this next summer. And then as far as our academies go, our IT Academy is still going strong. There's 43 students currently in the IT Academy, and our Academy of Medical Professions now in its 2nd year. The numbers are at 86 for the 2nd year there. Increasing parent education about the pathways and options for 4K through 12. So this is going to be a focus moving forward. It always is, and it always seems to be our hardest one here. We're doing social media campaigns. We're putting things out in the triad. We have shout points. We're doing lots of things that way to try to educate not only our students but our parents of what the options are, as well as just community. So by creating that job board, we're hoping that that is one central location for students and parents and community members. So not only for our students, but alumni as well can look on that. So if, like you said, Craig, if one of the people listening right now looks at that, if they're looking for a job, they can go on there and find a job as well, hopefully. We're looking to try to track the data better to be able to communicate that with families. So one initiative that I have for this next year that I would really like to try to better do is to utilize Qualtrics to better track that data and to kind of create a central dashboard so that we really know exactly what's going on, where our students are, and we can just kind of take a look at that and just better ourselves from it. And then lastly is assessing our needed learning spaces. So as you can see, over the last however many years, we have improved, obviously, the high school with the referendum project, all of our CTE spaces there. We have done the Parkview Fab Lab. Section library has been renovated now to better adapt to 21st century learning. And there are some more areas that we're still looking to update here in the tech ed expansion as we have dramatically grown out of that space. And then another thing that I would like to look at here is a certified nursing assistant, so a CNA training and testing center. So we are working with Gateway now to be able to take all of our classes. They'll come to our school to teach that. However, we would need to go somewhere else for our students to do the training part of that. And that worked out well. We went down to Elkhorn this last year, and we're looking at going to Waterford this next year. But I think we have what we need to actually create our own testing center right here, just to make that more available to all of our students and do it during the school year, not necessarily during the summer. All right, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple questions, Dustin. Back to the detail of your challenges with making everybody aware and making sure that we're going to hit these goals. And I realize we're short. I can sense the frustration in your presentation and how we're not at that 50%, and maybe that was too lofty. I mean, but we push you to exceed, so that's okay. We'll do it. So my question is, you said counselors have taken over the advisory lessons. Can you back into what were we doing before, and if you can give a specific example, I would like to understand that. And you said the graduation requirements for class of 2022. Is this the first class that has that requirement for Muck Ready Capstone? Okay. And is this tracked on Infinite Campus? I mean, if a parent, if you're, you know, a lot of parents, some parents do look at Infinite, some don't, but is it documented somewhere other than just the student being part of advisory, and maybe a parent asks, maybe a parent doesn't ask, what did you do and how are you achieving this? So what's that higher level of accountability that anybody can see?
All right, so the first part, counseling taking over our advisory lessons. Before, it was depending on what the initiative was that week. So let's say if it was Muck Ready, that was something that we had a Muck Ready team that came together, created all those lessons for freshmen through seniors. So there was 2 people at every grade level that created those lessons. In the first years before we were 1-to-1, there would be computers coming from all around the district coming to the high school. We were trying to coordinate that. That was kind of a mix between myself, different teachers, some other administrators. If we do the Mukwonago Way, that was our Muck Way team. So Sarah Dionich was a big piece of that. Sometimes we do saved lessons. That would be Sarah Dionich again. So it really depended on who was the go-to or the lead on the initiative that week. So a lot of this content is already created. Now the counselors are taking it and they're organizing it so that it makes sense. They're updating it, and then adapting to whatever our needs are, because our needs aren't going to be the same every single year, the same month, you know what I mean? So they're always kind of changing that to kind of go with whatever our initial needs are at that time. The second question was
Infinite Campus. I mean,
Infinite Campus.
So this is
it's a graduation requirement. So this is
So
the
where's
first
that tracked?
year that it's a graduation requirement approved by the school board. It has been a requirement of ours at the high school for the last 2 years. So this is the third group of seniors that is required to take to complete a Muck Ready capstone project. However, this is the first where we are putting it on, online. It is a requirement approved by the school board that they must complete that in order to graduate from Mukwonago High School.
Okay, so that is being tracked, and if it's not
Correct.
done, an advisory or counselor, who's really the final point in making sure that they're getting that done? Their advisors?
So their advisors are their mentors. So every advisor has roughly between, I would say, 18 to 26 students that they're responsible for tracking, and there's a checklist that they go through with their students. There's progress reports, there's different check-ins that they do.
Okay.
The students have to present to their advisors. There's multiple medias that they can use for that. However, like the GED 2 students, they have to do that as well. They come to me or to Miss Reckie to present that. Any online students, it's all required of them.
Okay.
So there's multiple levels, and between the advisors, the counselors, and myself, we're the ones holding them accountable for that.
Okay.
Are we doing anything to make job shadows available? I mean, I know they're getting into the companies, but, you know, eventually they'd want to be a CNA or whatever. Are they able to set up job shadows for those students?
Dustin, can
Do
I
we
They
have
as in
anything
who?
set up for that?
What do you mean by they?
Well, I'm like
Just
counselors or
are
whoever.
students
Yeah,
available for
our
job
students.
shadows?
You know, I mean,
Absolutely.
they might get in at a basic level, but can they go and job shadow an engineer for a day or?
Absolutely.
We
So
do
that is
Can I
definitely
jump, can I
something.
jump in here on that? I had a college senior ask me about a job shadow. Dustin set her up with 2 or 3 teachers. She's got her 40 hours in a matter of 3 weeks. She was amazed. It was great, really great. She has nothing but great things to say about our teachers letting her shadow and getting her hours in way before she needed them, you know, and it was good.
So we have some great stories like that. There are probably stories, though, where students, we can't identify that they are looking for a job shadow. But obviously, if a student ever needs a job shadow and they speak to their counselors, they speak to their teachers, a lot of times it gets back to me, and then we make it happen. So between contacts that I have, or I reach out to my other teachers, other colleagues in the area, we try to make it happen.
Awesome.
Anybody else have any questions? No? Thanks.
Awesome, thank
Appreciate
you.
you guys coming.
Thanks.
So Tom and I are available if any of our students would like to shadow.
Nobody wants to
Job shadow.
Just
Have
don't
there
get hit
been
by the
any
tomatoes.
requests made so far this year for public school administrator shadow?
Horrible.
All right, we're going to move into our committee updates. Without Cherry or Stephanie here, I will run through Student Learning Committee update real quick. Last month, we talked about, Ben came and talked to us about summer school and just kind of reviewed that with us. We had a very large year for summer school. We had 1,173 students. He does believe that some of the high points as to why so many students came, we really increased a lot of the electives. We did eliminate the transportation fee for busing. That made it more accessible. We did see 396 students at the high school, a lot online classes as well, included in that, as well as 174 in the Indian Athletic Program. We have our K-2 teachers, a group of them, going through LETRS training, LETRS, which is a literacy training, so just training how to teach literacy, the science behind it. It's all year long. They started earlier this year, and our elementary principals will be going through that as well. There is a link in the student learning packet if you'd like to go look at LETRS training, because I think you guys would all be excited about that. No?
That's all I've been doing.
That's all you've been doing. We did have a discussion on our valedictorian and salutatorian program. It was addressed at the end of the year last year. So Learning Committee has been kind of doing a deep dive into that and having discussion if that's something we want to continue as is. So we did look at what other districts around us are doing and have seen a very vast array of different options. So we are putting together a committee to kind of look over all of the information and come back to the board with a recommendation of what they think would work best for the Mukwonago School Board. It will be include administrators, staff, board members if you're interested, parents, students as well. So you can contact Stephanie if you're interested in that. We looked at different middle school learning models around southeastern Wisconsin and what those makeups look like as we continue to look forward to long-term planning ranges and what could possibly happen to middle school or not happen to middle school. Learning Committee has been talking about what might make the best sense when it comes to the education side of things. So we were looking at middle school models that are available. And then we spent some time talking about our U.S. history and sociology pilots for our new textbooks. So those began this semester. I have been reading my U.S. history textbook. Vito, have you been reading yours?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So everybody seems pretty happy with them. We will be looking for approval by the end of the semester if the pilot continues to go well so that they can be put into place for second semester as we continue to move forward. Those textbooks are available if you would also like to do some of your U.S. history reading. So you can let us know if you're interested about that. And then we'll move to Personnel Committee.
Personnel, we talked about the support staff and where we're having issues in areas, and basically that we need more support. So if anybody's available, please fill out an application or contact the district office.
As a matter of fact, during our director meeting today, Tom talked about having a table at the football game. So we have a big game this Friday night, Mukwonago and Arrowhead, and so we'll be advertising our vacancies at the game, hoping to just let people know, even if no one there, is looking for a job, maybe they know others that are willing to help us out, because we are in need of support staff in all areas.
Okay. And the rest is on the action items.
Okay, and then Finance and Facility Committee update.
Continuing with our path to visit all of our schools and review our facility plan, we met at Section Elementary School and had a tour from the principal inside and out, reviewed a summary with Bray Architects on some of their findings that they're doing as they go through this process, meeting with staff and administration, where this will all culminate in a presentation probably around March, where we're going to look at short-term, long-term goals. Tom's putting together a pretty detailed summary of wants, needs, and priorities that we will decide what to do next steps. One of the things we are waiting on is a population study that we commissioned, I think, about a month ago, and we should have the results of that by February. So we felt that's pretty important to understand what's happening to the population of our district as we may or may not make decisions on what changes to make with facilities. So that is how we spent that time. Bus appeals, Tom manages bus appeals in our district, and he brings a summary to the team for our review should there be any issues. And he had one circumstance that he took care of and brought us up to speed on. And then we had 4K payments. We're increasing by $25 to $2,800 per student for all our partner sites. Those are the high points.
Okay, thank you. And we will move right away into action items. Does not look like there are any appointments, resignations, or retirements.
There are none.
Okay, and then we're going to have Tom give us like the brief, unexciting update on the 2021-22 tax levy and budget. So like the high points.
Sure, yep, I'll do that here. So everybody has a copy of the budget booklet there. I put it on your chairs tonight. It's also posted to our website, and that is our final proposed budget with your permission tonight. So at the end of this, if everyone's comfortable, we're looking to take 2 roll call votes here, one on the tax levy itself and one on the budget itself. So if you take a look at page 2 of our tax levy summary here, I'll bring that up on the screen. This is what we have on the screen. This is ultimately what we're trying to take a motion for and to take action here. So the tax levy is totaling $31,098,218. That is a 0.2% decrease from the prior year's tax levy. So the overall amount of tax is going down. And then the mill rate will drop from $8 last year to $7.57. So the total amount of the tax levy was approved by the voters at the annual meeting unanimously. So we've talked about this repeatedly. We haven't changed this number, so it's what we've talked about all along here. If you go to page 3, and on
For everyone in attendance, the finance meetings are a blast. You should come to one.
Thanks, Craig. Appreciate
Enjoy
that.
it.
So then here on this screen here, we have our 12 funds. And for the most part, none of these have changed. We originally adopted the preliminary budget in August, but between August and now, we've finalized hiring. Our new teachers have enrolled or declined benefits, so there's a lot of moving parts there. One of the big pieces that I do want to highlight is just Fund 10 and Fund 27 are the most important funds just by the sheer size of the dollars inside of those funds there from a financial perspective. We have about $600,000 more in receipts, and I'm simply recognizing some federal revenues that we've gotten. And then I've also recognized those expenses as well. So overall, our budgeted expenditures are up by $1 million from what we adopted at the annual meeting. $600,000 of that million is the matching of recognizing of federal revenues and the recognition of the federal expenses that go hand in hand. So it's $600,000 in, $600,000 out. The remaining $400,000 is recognizing the support staff raises that we awarded since in September. So altogether, that's the explanation for why expenses are higher. But we did leave about $500,000 in surplus in Fund 10. We didn't allocate every dollar that we have, so there's wiggle room if need be throughout the year. If we need to make a move or a change, we have the opportunity to do so. I'll take any questions you might have.
I'll just make the motion to approve the 7.57%.
I'll second.
All right.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Erica?
Oh, yes.
call.
Thank you, yes.
Mary, yes. Joel?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Art?
Yes.
Vito?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Jerry? Oh, excuse, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, motion carries.
So then we would need one more motion to adopt the budget. So the budget is, if you look at the budgeted receipts, it'd be adopting a budget recognizing $80,535,000 in revenues and $78 million in budgeted expenditures.
I would like to make that motion.
I will second. We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion?
Erica?
Yes.
Mary, yes. Joel?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Art?
Yes.
Vito?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Jerry excused.
Okay, motion carries.
I didn't even say tertiary
Nope. you
one
didn't.
time.
Not one.
Very proud of
How
you.
about that? Thanks, Mary.
I'll go sit down.
Okay, number 4, we have COVID mitigation proposal for quarantines for student with in-home positive.
So in your folder, we have our memo that gives a brief COVID update and then the proposal for the quarantine. So first and foremost, the COVID landscape for the state, the county, and the district has improved since the end of September, early October. Pleased to report. So the Waukesha County Health Department last week when we met, they stated that COVID cases were still high but stabilizing for school-aged children. The district has seen a decline in COVID cases over the past 2 weeks. We had a high of 87 positive cases in our schools on October 8th, and I'm happy to report that as of noon today, we are down to 35. So we are significantly better than we were 2 weeks ago and throughout the month of September when we were having a steady increase. We continue to have COVID spread in a few classrooms, and as you know, our practice has been to place a classroom in virtual instruction for 7 to 10 days when the number of positive cases in that staff and students in a classroom reaches the 20% threshold, and we've had to do that twice this year. Last month, as you know, I proposed a tiered mitigation proposal, which was not approved by the school board. Instead, it was determined at that board meeting that the board members would discuss possible mitigation strategies in the committee meetings during the month of October. So we gathered input at the Personnel Committee on October 11th and the Finance and Facilities Committee on October 18th. And I believe at this time, the majority of the school board supports requiring a mandatory quarantine for those students that live in a home with a positive case of COVID. And the exceptions could be made for students who are vaccinated or who have had COVID within the past 90 days. And there was also discussion about possible exceptions for those that test positive for antibodies. The quarantine would be 10 days from the last contact with the infected individual, and the student could return sooner on day 8 if they are symptom-free and a negative PCR test on day 6 or day 7. So I believe that's the input that you guys gave me the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I disagree with the majority of it, just so you guys know. I'm against it.
I agree with that.
Okay, so this proposal came forward to the full board because it came out of each committee with a majority. So there has been some support for having in-home positive cases, have families quarantine with exceptions. So that's kind of been the discussion that has come around. So I don't know if people have anything to share regarding that.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, just like any other illness, we don't want to spread it in the schools. And to keep the schools open, we have to keep the spread down, and this is a simple, easy step to do, and I think it's appropriate.
I would disagree because we haven't had
Can you
that.
speak into your microphone?
My fault. I would disagree because we haven't had that and we haven't had to do it.
Could you,
We haven't had any mitigation, we haven't had to quarantine kids, and we haven't had to shut things down or do anything outrageous, and the numbers are going down.
so we have had to quarantine some classrooms, though. Like, we have had to shut down classrooms. Is that what you're saying,
Well,
that we
On
have?
that note, we didn't actually approve that. So part of the 20% was in the mitigation plans, which we didn't approve, so he's actually doing something that's not approved, is that correct?
That's not correct.
No.
So those were the standing protocols that have been in place since last April. And because we have not done anything to change those, they are what currently stand.
Okay.
Yeah, just to be clear, so that was a practice that we started last year, and
That was
this,
part of, that was one of the things that was on that list, but it was already happening.
that's correct. So if you recall this summer, we talked about mitigation strategies, and that is one that you said that we should continue, and that, and I'm trying to think, I think it was in July, and we had a joint Finance and Facilities and Personnel Committee meeting at Big Bend Elementary. And so we discussed mitigation strategies there, and then also at the July board meeting. Obviously, the landscape, the COVID landscape at that time looked dramatically different than what we saw in September. And so at that time, we agreed that if there was COVID spread within a classroom, that it would be okay for the superintendent to make that decision. However, if it was an entire school, that the school board would meet to make that determination.
I'd also like to point out that what we're doing is we're taking and we're setting ourselves up to do something that is going to just, it doesn't make any sense because we are testing people that have no symptoms. Like my son had to go get a test the other day to go to Chicago. Things are happening where if they want to go do stuff, like when they go to Ireland, if they go to Ireland and their brother had it or something, or they had it a few months ago and they didn't test positive, and now they test positive because they tell us that you will test positive for a long period afterwards. That is a fact. With the PCR test, the testing people told me that you will test for up to 3 months afterwards, something along those lines. So now if somebody got it, had no symptoms, didn't have any problems, have to go do something, they go get tested, and now everybody in their house, not only do they not get to go do what they were going to go do because they are going to test positive, everybody in their house, every kid in their house now has to quarantine for 10 days. Not sick, no symptoms, no nothing, still quarantine. That doesn't make any sense to me. That's going to happen, and we're going to get it, which we're going to be making people mad by doing that for something that is falling dramatically. I mean, we're down to 37, it's September. We're fixing a problem that barely is a problem anymore.
It seems like we're adding to the fear. That's my opinion. We're adding to the fear of this whole thing.
That's exactly right.
I don't need it. But okay.
We
If you say we have the majority, let's just take the vote and be done then.
Yeah, I mean, we said what we had to say.
Well, we also reviewed at a board working meeting how we're going to respectfully allow everyone to speak. So if anyone else on the board, you weren't at that meeting, that's all right, wants to share, we're giving them that opportunity.
We did also put in measures so they can go get tested for antibodies, correct?
Right, so, I mean, it makes enough sense to me that I think this is worth a try when COVID is in the home. We know Delta variant is far more contagious. That family members should probably stay home and wait and make sure they don't end up with it, because unfortunately, that is what we're seeing, Vito. That's exactly what's happening in our buildings, is it's parents at home with COVID sending their kids to school, and they end up with it, and they spread it, or a couple siblings at home. So unfortunately, it is exactly what we're seeing, and it can be hard to detect symptoms right away. This happened in my house, and it totally stinks. 2 of my kids had to take a test to go to a family reunion, both positive, and days later had symptoms, and they did have to stay home. So I think we can say we're testing kids without symptoms. Yes, maybe then and there, but it does indeed happen that symptoms come, and in the meantime, we could be sending kids to school. But I did have another daughter at home, and this is why it's important to me that we have exceptions in place, because she had just had it. She had the antibodies. There was zero logical reason in my mind that she should have to stay home because she's over it and moving on. Like, no, you can go to school. So I think it's important for me, for those who have never had it, that it's active in their home. We talk all the time about how people need to keep their sick kids home. I know you're saying, well, but they're not. Well, they may not be, but they very well might be, and spread it. So I think it's important and worthwhile to give it a go with some exceptions in place, in my opinion.
Are we willing to do this forever?
No, we're not talking about forever. We're talking about for right now.
When we're done with this policy, we'll tell Mr. McNulty we're done with this policy. And
Like,
it will be
we
open.
change policies
We're the board.
24/7. That's why we're here
Every
doing this
month we're here
discussion.
changing policies and changing.
Jill?
I just want to say that I'm in support of this. I think it's reasonable. I don't think we're going off the deep end. I think if we, at our last month's board meeting, this is probably something we should have taken more seriously and tried to accomplish. Correct me if I'm wrong, are we not the only school in Waukesha County that does not have this, Sean?
So the majority of them have it,
Majority of them have it.
but not all.
Not that we follow them, but I think in terms of your making some comparisons, which we're doing. I mean, he's meeting with other superintendents every single week and watching trends. And perhaps if we would have done this, maybe we wouldn't have been in the high level we were 2 weeks ago, where things were not good. And I would also beg to differ that if you brought a handful of teachers in here and asked them to speak their truth, they would probably say, I know there are kids coming to school where they've got COVID in their house, because that's how I got it.
Do you know if our numbers are any different than all the other schools?
So 2 weeks ago, we were significantly higher than other districts. So I do have that data. I can share that with you. I did not bring that tonight, but I can send that to you.
2 weeks ago, we were double Waukesha in percentage-wise. Waukesha School District 2 is bigger than us. So I will say, and this is the hard part, because I'm kind of like COVID's it's around, it's not going anywhere, we're not gonna change it, should we do this? But then at the same time, I have parents come and tell me, I don't care what you say, I'm sending my kid to school whether or not they have COVID. So that makes it really challenging to be like, well, okay, so we have kids saying, no, my friends are at school with COVID, they know they have COVID, or they won't get tested but are symptomatic, and then my kid ends up with COVID. So the problem is we're not keeping kids home, so I think this is a reasonable effort. At least that's been the dialogue that I believe others share, that it's a reasonable effort, and if in 3 months we see nothing, we have all of the prerogative in the world to change that.
Yes.
Andy, do you have any thoughts?
No, I'm good.
Art? What about you, Joel?
I support it as well.
Okay. Cherry is here by phone call listening in. I don't know if she can share with us, but I can talk. Oh, I don't know if you can talk. Hang on. Try.
Hello, can you hear me?
Good.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
that worked remarkably well.
Absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, all right. So I have personal cases where the parent chose to keep children home because an adult had a positive COVID test. There were no symptoms. They took the kids in. They found that one of the kids had COVID, not a symptom at all. So they kept them through the quarantine time. Had that not happened, they could have shared it with someone who possibly could have died from it. So I am totally on board with doing this. I think we are supposed to represent all of the people, and so this is something we can do. We cannot control what people do with it, but we can at least be the models that say, please be kind and check it out. That's where I'm at.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Do I have a motion? Oh, you didn't hear it, I don't think, but Cherry made the motion.
I'll second.
And I have a second. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Okay. Motion carries. We will give this,
Overkind.
Got that going for us.
we will give this one a try. Neola policy update.
So we have several Neola policies that were reviewed by all three committees this past month. I don't know that I think the Learning Committee had one, Personnel and Finance and Facilities had several each. And so most of those were minor legal changes. Some were a little more significant than others, but they were approved at the committee level to send to the full board for approval. If you want to approve them tonight, though, you would have to waive that second reading.
Make a motion to waive the second reading.
Second.
Do we need a roll call for that? No. Okay, all those in favor of waiving the second reading, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
No, motion to approve them all.
I have a motion,
Second.
and I have a second. Any other discussion or questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We have the 2021-22 four-year-old kindergarten payments.
Yep, so we're just looking to increase the amount that we pay our community partners by $25 for a total of $2,800 per student.
Motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the increase to $2,800 per student for our 4K partners.
Okay, I have a motion, Jill. I will second that. Any other question or discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And then moving into unfinished business. So we have superintendent's report.
So two items. One was what Craig brought up earlier tonight, and that is the citizens' comments via email, which is a practice that we started back in April of 2020 when we were shut down and we were not holding any face-to-face school board meetings, and so we were doing our board meetings virtually. So obviously people could not attend, and so we started to take citizens' comments via email. We continued that practice throughout last year and obviously into this year, and so some of our board members have expressed some interest in having that discussion about continuing or discontinuing that practice. We never did put it into board policy, so it's not a policy. It's just a practice. So I don't know if you want me to bring that to a committee like the Personnel Committee and bring back a recommendation to the full board, or how would you like to proceed?
I would just like to say we're done with it. We don't do Zoom meetings. We are always in person now. There's no reason for it.
I would agree. Do away with it.
I mean, that is why we started it, for people to have access to speak during Zoom meetings, right? That was the premise behind it.
Right.
And now that we're fully in person, I don't see the need.
No point.
Constituents still have our ear. They can still email us, they can still call us, and that can all be part of consideration, but I don't think we need to have all the emails available.
It's not like we don't read them, because we all get them.
Yeah, we all get them.
It's just to read them, everyone at the board, I think that's a little much.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know, do you just need guidance from us? If it's not
Yes.
a policy, we
Yep,
don't need to vote on it?
You guys decide how you want us to proceed.
Make it go away.
Does anybody want to keep it?
No.
There you go.
Done.
But
Okay.
what I don't want to see is people not sending us in for emails or what,
Oh,
I
no,
mean,
they will.
I think that's important, not, we're not saying, hey, we don't want to see them.
No.
It's just that
No.
5 hours to read 100 emails, it seems like a bit much. That's,
So in the triad, the upcoming triad, which will come in November, my column talks about school board meetings, about citizen participation, about committee procedures. That was a request that you guys had from the board working session, that we do explain that to our residents. And so I can make sure, I can't remember if we talked about emails, but we can make sure that our residents, our parents understand that even if they can't attend a board meeting, they can still provide input to our board members via email.
Yep.
And that you guys read those.
So I think it seems fairly unanimous that we feel like it served its purpose and the time has come to stop. Yes?
Because we didn't put that in policy. That was just
We didn't. It was, we needed to make something work for the meantime. Yep. Okay. Sounds good.
And then the other piece of the superintendent's report was the enrollment update. And so at your table, we have our enrollment. It's this large sheet, and then in the packet or on board docs, We also have a couple other documents that show incoming open enrollment and outgoing open enrollment. And so our third Friday enrollment did increase. It increased to 5,070 students. That's an increase from last year to 5,005. Now, the document at the table, you'll see that we have more than 5,070. So at the end of September, we had 5,082 students in our school. So please note that this is a little different number than what Tom works with for his budget. So a couple different numbers that Tom works with. First of all, our resident students, you know, and some of our resident students don't attend our schools. They go to a private voucher school, they open enroll out, so that's a little different number. Tom also works with a 3-year rolling average when he creates our budget and looks at state aid. What I'm more concerned about, and our staff is more concerned about, is the number of students that are sitting in our desks in the classroom. And for this year, 4K through 12, that's 5,000, at least at the end of September, it's 5,080 students, and that is an increase from last year. So we're very pleased to report that. We have 600 students that are open enrolled into our district, and the majority, as you know, that has not changed, are coming from Palmyra Eagle and East Troy. So that is a large number of students. That's over 10% of our student body coming from outside our district. Those parents are choosing to send their children to our schools. And then, and I want to make sure I give you the correct number, 287 students who live in our district are outgoing open enrollment. And so that is an increase. That's a little bigger increase than we are used to seeing. But we do have a good explanation for that. As you know, a number of our students who were concerned about COVID and were concerned about the lack of mitigation measures decided to open enroll to virtual schools. And so many of them are going to the Waukesha School District E-Achieve virtual school. And so that's an increase of 27 from last year for outgoing open enrollment. So hopefully we're going to have a decrease next year.
Do we know why the other 260 are open and rolling out somewhere else?
So we haven't done a study recently, but if you take a look at the geography of many of those students, so a large chunk of those students open enrolled at Kettle Moraine, and they live north of North Prairie. So we have plotted where those students live, and they live a lot closer to McGee Elementary and to Dousman Middle School and Kettle Moraine High School than they do to some of our schools in Mukwonago. And so we've seen a number of students north of North Prairie go to the Kettle Moraine School District. And then on the far eastern side of our district, east of Big Bend, we have a few headed to Muskego. And then you'll also see, if you take a look at the chart that has the outgoing open enrollment students, and you take a look at what schools they're attending, if it says Nakusa or Northern Ozaki, or I'm going to look at my notes here, to McFarland, Grantsburg, Merrill, Nakusa, Northern Ozaki. Those are districts far, far away from us, northern Wisconsin, southwestern Wisconsin, several hours away. Those are virtual school students as well. But there is no doubt that we do not want to continue to see an increase of outgoing open enrollment students. So that's something that we'll address, but I do believe that it will go down. Other questions about enrollment?
Thank you, Sean.
No, that's okay.
Legislation and correspondence.
I do have some notes on legislation and correspondence. I'm sorry, I have to find mine. So on the board docs and in the documents, you'll find several pieces of correspondence. First, you can find the flyer for that mental health awareness night, the Journey to Resiliency, which is a partnership, as Christine said, with the district and also with the Gals Institute and Brook Life Church. And as you know, Brook Life Church has been a fantastic partner with us for a long time. And so we want to continue to promote that evening. We also have a thank you letter to Matt Glush, who is the COO at IDC. And we are thanking him for his donation of 9-piece Milwaukee toolkit to our CTE program at MHS. Dustin didn't mention it, but you should be aware that October is Manufacturing Month, and so it's very appropriate to recognize Matt and IDC because they're a valuable community partner, and as you know, they have naming rights to our CTE area, our manufacturing area at Mukwonago High School. Fantastic partner. Also, a thank you letter to some grandparents at Big Bend, Mr. and Mrs. Kopp, for their $1,000 donation to Big Bend for the renovation of their library and technology center. And then 2 of our school board members were recently recognized by the WASB, so congrats to Cherry for achieving level 3 status and to Jill for achieving level 1 status.
Congratulations.
I don't know if you were able to attend that recognition ceremony? No, it's understandable. And then finally, related to an earlier item, a nice article in the Freeman, which highlights our building trades class and the work they did on the press box, the football field track.
Sean, can I add to your?
Absolutely, please.
The National School Board Association has made headlines lately. In Virginia, I believe it is. Basically saying the parents have no say in should have no say in their children's education. Has there been following that, I hope, a little bit?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Okay. I don't know, do we want to make a statement as a board to the Wisconsin Association of School Boards that supports the National School Board Association, that we're not in the same, even in the same ballpark as these people? I think it's a bad message. It's a political football. It's a hotbed item right now. I think it's something we could say as a statement to the Wisconsin School Board Association, or not. Just, I was throwing it out there because I was hacked off. That's all. Anybody?
That's something we could send forth as a motion to the January?
So we could definitely talk about whether or not we want to put together a resolution. So we are not members of the National Association of School Boards ourselves. I was trying to quick look to see if WASB itself is a member of NASB, but do you know that off the top of your head?
I do not know that. I certainly can investigate that. I'm not aware of an affiliation, but that doesn't mean there is not. As far as a school board resolution, you can do a school board resolution that, and on anything, and we've done school board resolutions before, for example, on the start of school, the state law that has to deal with the start of school after September 1st. As far as one of the resolutions that we take a look at for the WASB convention, I think those resolutions are due at the end of September or end of October. So I don't know if that's what you're referring to, Craig?
For the convention?
I think what he's saying is basically, we don't want to support anybody that doesn't support parents speaking up and talking. So whatever we have to do to
Yeah, I don't
let them
know
know,
how-
like, hey, that's not okay, and we're not gonna support you. If it's a letter, if it's, I think my original thing, as soon as I started to see that, I contacted Erica to find out if we were giving them money. Like, if we're paying to be a part of their association, we should probably stop that. She let me know that we weren't.
WASBA or NASBA?
No.
WASBA we're paying for?
Yeah.
We are
Should
paid
we?
members of Wisconsin Association of School Boards.
I don't know the value they add, that's all. Okay.
There are emergency resolutions allowed, so if we did want to type up a resolution to submit to the WASB Policy and Resolution Committee, I don't believe they've started meeting yet, but if we want to work on something, because I agree, I mean, we say that all the time here, like, we want our parents speaking, we want to hear from them, we've never been against that, we definitely don't agree, I don't think, you can all speak for yourselves, but that parents are any form of trouble.
Terrorists.
I wasn't going to say it, but yeah.
They did.
That's what they said, that is true. So they have walked that statement back. NASB did actually,
I've
Read-
not seen that statement.
they did make a statement and retracted that. No, I think it was last week.
Again, he gives,
Friday.
Because one of their employees made that comment and wrote that letter. So they are reviewing their practices to see how that came out, that is not their stance. But I don't see that it hurts anything to put it in writing, that our stance is that we always support the parents' involvement in our education. So if that's something that you're wanting, if that's something the board wants to do, is
want me to
put
write it?
together. I don't know, board, should we vote on that?
I'd love
Do we
to see
want
where this
Craig-
turns out.
So, if you guys say them, I'll write it.
So, I mean, also,
Can I send it?
yeah, Sean?
So I would, if Craig's willing to do it, he could put something together, bring it to finance and facilities, and then it can go from finance and facilities to the full board, or you can come up with a different process. But that might make the most sense if there is a sense of urgency as far as timeliness and, again, if you want to have it for the WASB convention, again, for one of those resolutions that's actually voted upon.
How about we do, are you cool with me doing a little bit of digging first with WASB, make sure something isn't already submitted that we could just sign on to?
Yep.
And we can go from
Might
there.
already be a resolution
Yep,
that's in
so, how about I do some digging on that? And if we all want to make sure that we put our voices out there in support of parents and families, then I think we should do it.
Agreed.
Whether or not it goes anywhere, I think it should be can be beneficial as a formal statement from us. Okay. We have an executive session. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So I would need a motion to go into executive session. I have a motion. I will.
Second.
Jill